All right, so we talked about polynomials, expressions with many parts. We have monomials, a single term in an expression, a binomial, two terms, a trinomial, three terms, and then now we're going to talk about multiplying those things together. Multiplying a monomial times a binomial, binomial times binomial, and so forth. So when we are multiplying things together, the things that are being multiplied are called factors, right? Numbers multiplying together. And then our answer, when we multiply those together, is called a product. And we'll have, when we're working with polynomials, we'll use those, but they'll be in larger chunks now. We'll be multiplying things together with larger chunks. And again, this is really kind of a review. You've probably seen this before. And we'll start out simple. We'll kind of build it. And for those of you who think you've got it, when you get to your assignment, there'll be some problems that are a little bit more chunky, so to speak, a little bit more moving parts, but we'll start simple. So let's go ahead in our notes, and we're going to do, again, this is multiplying, and if you want to put that topic on the top, if you've started a new sheet, multiplying polynomials. And we're going to start by multiplying a monomial with a binomial. So down here it says questions. Let's just say multiplying monomial timesing by a binomial. I'm going to give you a second to write that down. And I know when I played this video back that you can kind of hear the tap of my pencil. Sorry, I tried what I could to so you couldn't hear that, but there's no way to get rid of it. So just focus on the wonderful math you're learning. Okay, so here we go. Monomial is a one-term thing. So say we have a 3, and then it's going to be touching the parentheses, and we need a binomial. And so inside the parentheses, we're going to have 4x and a negative 7. So we have this number out front. This is a monomial. Mono, we'll just put. And then this part here is our binomial, right? It's got two parts. Binomial. All right, and we did this like basic math. Because the 3 is touching the parentheses, technically there's times. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to like train yourself to see anytime things are touching. It's like the only invisible operation we have. It's multiply. So if I were going to rewrite that again, 3 times 4x minus 7, we're going to, some of you know it as we know it as the distributive property, where we're going to distribute this 3 to the 4. We're going to times it by the 4, and we're going to times it by the negative 7. I worked with another teacher, and she called it the Angry Birds method, right? Because you shoot the bird and it has to knock all the all the little pigs over. So I like to kind of show the work from the bottom. So this is 3 times 4, and 3 times 4 is 12, and then we bring down our x. And then we do 3 times negative 7. So 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. So we distribute or bring over the 3 to both numbers. Now, the other piece that we have to remember is that, well, there's not another. We talked about showing you the box method. So the next, we're going to set up the box method. It's really not, maybe it doesn't seem as useful with a monomial times a binomial because it's a pretty simple problem. But when we get more complicated problems, then you may find that this is really helpful for keeping things organized and kind of visually. It's better than, it's a little easier way to kind of separate out the numbers. So we've got two parts to this problem, or two factors. So let's just go back and sort of recognize what we have here. We have 3. It's being multiplied by the parentheses, so 3 is a factor. And then this chunk that we have that's multiplying by it, that 4x minus 7, is also, this whole chunk is also a factor. And then our answer that we get when we multiply it out, the answer we get, 12x minus 21, is actually our product. So this whole thing is our answer or our product to a multiplication problem. All right, we multiplied these two things together, and our end result was an answer that is not, is kind of a chunk. Again, we have 2 terms in that. It's a binomial as an answer. So we can show that or set that up with the box method, or I guess let's use another problem. So let's start out with 4 times 8x plus 5y. So again, the 4 is technically touching the parentheses, so it's a short way of saying times, so we're multiplying. That makes 4 a factor and 8x plus 5y a factor. So when we do the box method, what we do is we create a box. In this case, we're going to make a skinny one. And we're going to set up our first factors. Our factors are going to go on the sides. So the factors are going to go here, and then our factors are going to go across the top. And really what we're setting up is kind of a times table chart. We can put a big dot right here for times. And our answer that we get is going to be the product. So our answer inside is going to be our product. All the numbers that are inside our box. And some of you probably have seen this before. So let's just set up a simple problem. We're going to use our example up here to set up a box. Well, we have one factor out front, the 4. So that's going to go right here. And then I'm going to draw my box. And I'm going to set up, so this is my first factor, right? And then I'm going to bring my other factors down. So my 8x and my positive 5y, these are my other factors. And I have 2 factors, and I want to create a space for both of those answers that I'm going to get. So now I'm going to take and just draw a line right down. So I've got this box technically right here on the left, and then I've got this box here on the right. And again, this is a multiplication chart. So I'm going to multiply the 4 times the 8 and put my answer right in here, my product. So 4 times 8 is 32. And then I just have one x, so I'm going to bring that x right down next to it. And then I'm going to do that same process again. 4 times 5y, and I'm going to put my answer right in that box. So 4 times 5 is 20, and then I just have this 1y, so I'm going to bring that y down. And now I have my 2 factors, and once we're in the middle, in the center, once we've times everything and we have our product, we're going to add our products together. So inside again, remember this is the product or our answer. And I can bring those out. So now that I'm done, I'm going to bring out my 32x. I'm going to connect it with addition. And I have 20y out to the side. And so that's my answer or my complete product for my problem. All right, it gets easier, or some of you probably know this already, may have done some of this, and we're just, again, dusting off the cobwebs and doing a few reminders. Okay, so the box method. Now, the next thing that we have to talk about is, well, what happens if we are multiplying our variables with another variable? And I don't want to go too deep into the rules for that. We're just going to cover the simplest one. So let's do another one. And let's do 3x times 5x plus 4. Okay, I've got my two factors. Again, 3x is touching the parentheses, and that's a short way of saying multiply. I'm going to set up my box. I'm going to bring my 3x on the side here. And then I'm going to make a box. And I've got my 5x plus 4. And this is a multiplication chart. I'm going to draw a line here so I get two boxes, one for each of my terms, and then I'm going to multiply it. Well, let's remember that this x has an exponent of 1, and so does this x over here. So if we don't see any little numbers there, then there's an unsaid 1. And when we multiply variables, we add the exponents. So we're going to go 3 times 5, and we get 15. And how I think about it in this example is I'm going to put an x here, and how many x's do I have? Well, I have 1 here, and I have 1 here. So I have a total of 2 x's. So 15x to the second. So when I'm multiplying, I add the exponents. Now I multiply the next one. I'm going to go 3 times the 4. 3 times 4 is 12. And then again, how many x's do I have? I only have 1 x between the two numbers, so I have 12x. In the center, we add any like terms we have. We add anything that's, we combine our like terms. So what I really have is 15x to the second plus 12x. And remember, we can't add those because they're not like terms. This has an exponent of 2, and this technically has an exponent of 1. So that's our final answer, or right there. All right. So when we're multiplying, we add the exponents. It's about how many x's we have total. When we add, we just add like terms, and we don't change the exponents. And we'll come back to exponents and explore them a little bit deeper, but we're just going to go with the basics. So let's talk about doing now in our notes, off to the side here, let's do a binomial times a binomial. All right, here we go. Say I have parentheses 2x plus 8 times, so again, we have those parentheses touching, So that's a short way of saying times. So there's no addition in there, there's no subtraction. In the center right here, so this is a multiplication problem. So we have 2x plus 8, and let's do 5x minus 3. So now we're multiplying our factors, right? This is a factor, this big chunk right here, and this is a factor. And they're multiplying together because they're touching, right? We have multiply right in the center. So now we're going to set up a box. The other way you could do this is the FOIL method, but again, people tend to lose track of things. So this is the best way to organize it. So now that we have a binomial times a binomial, we're going to set up a bigger box. So make yourself a bigger box. And remember, we're going to bring our factors off to the side here. Factor and factors up top. And this is a big multiplication table. It's timesing things together. So we're going to bring our first set of factors and we're going to line them up down the side, right down here. So we're going to go and write a 2x, and then we're going to write an 8x. Or if it was a negative 8, we'd put the negative 8 there. So we're going to just bring those down. And then I'm going to line up my other factor along the top. So I have 5x minus 3. Remember, terms are separated by plus or minus. So I'm going to draw a line right where that subtract starts. And I'm going to draw a line right across through the center here. So now I have a times table chart. And I have a place to put my answers right in the middle for all these spots. All right. Here we go. So we're going to multiply our answers into the center. So 2 times 5 is 10. And then I'm going to come back and deal with, my x's. Now remember that 2x, that x has an exponent of 1, and that 5x has an exponent of 1, and I add those together. So 1 plus 1 is a total of 2 x's. So I'm going to put that little 2 up in the exponent position. Then I'm going to multiply. I'm going to just go across the row. So I'm going to come over and go 2 times negative 3. So I get negative 6. And again, use your calculators if you're not, you and positive and negative numbers aren't that great. Use your calculator so you make sure you get the right answer in there. And then how many x's do I have? Well, I just have this 1x right here, so I'm just going to bring over 1x in my answer. I'm going to do that process again. 5 times 8 is 40, and don't forget the x next to the 5, so 40x. And then 8 times negative 3, right? Negative 3, so 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. Now, in the inside, after we've done all the multiplying on the outside, we're going to add like terms. And so this is one more new piece to add to what we've been doing. So we're going to look inside our box and see if there are any like terms that we can add. And yes, there are. There's a 40x and a negative 6x. So they both have just plain old x's, so I know I can combine those. So I'm going to start writing my answer, my product, outside here as and I'm just going to pull these numbers out. So this 10x squared doesn't have any like terms, so I bring 10x squared out. then we said that 40 and negative 6 are like terms, so I can add those two together. So 40 plus negative 6, well, it means that I'm actually taking away some because of that negative 6. So that gives me a positive 34x, because when we're adding, we just keep the x's the same. So that's the answer right there, those two things combined. And then all I have left now is that negative 24. So I'm going to bring down this negative 24. And that is it. I have my final answer. This is my product, or my end result of multiplying a binomial times a binomial. Right? And then that is the box method. And again, remember that most often we'll get this nice like diagonal where our like terms are kind of corner to corner. So we can add those and then just bring down our others. Now when we get beyond binomials, then sometimes you have to be a little more careful, but frequently they make a little diagonal pattern. All right, so let's try another one and see how you do. So if we have, I guess let's go bigger. Let's do a binomial and a trinomial. I'll help you set that up. So if we have 3y minus 5, and I guess we'll just do binomials, and then 7y minus 6. So there's nothing in between here. There's no operation that we can see so that we know that it must be multiply, because two parentheses are touching. So it's multiplication. So we're going to set up our boxes, and I do want you to set up the boxes. I don't want you to do it another way, even though you may know it another way. I want you to practice using the boxes. So we're going to set up a box, make it big enough for however big your handwriting is. We're going to bring our factors down the side, so we have 3y, and again a negative 5. And then I'm going to bring my other factors up top. So 7y and negative 6. And then I'm going to draw lines in between my terms to create my box. All right, so now that I have my box set up, we can start our multiplying. Remember, this is just a big multiplication chart. So 3 times 7 is 21. Each of these y's have a 1 by them. So 1y, 2 y's, so y to the second. Then I work my way across. 3 times negative 6, negative 18. And I've got 1y to bring over here. So negative 18y. Negative 5 times 7, negative 35. 1y between the two of them. And negative 5 times negative 6 gives us a positive 30. So again, be careful if you're doing these on your own to use your calculator. Now on the inside, now that we have it done, on the inside we are adding our like terms. And again, not always, but frequently our like terms are diagonal. So I can start bringing out my product or my answer. I've got 21y to the second. When I add my middle terms right here that are like, they're both negative, so I'm just adding them. So I get a total of negative, let's see, 353. Hopefully I did that right. And again, we're just adding, so we just keep the y's the same, and then that's a positive 30. So I'm going to just connect that with a plus sign. And then that's my product, or my answer, when I multiply that all out. Let's do one more. We'll do a trinomial, and then we'll add a little twist there. So let's do 3y plus 4 times 4y to the second plus 2y minus 5. All right, we're going to create our box. I'm going to move my box down. Get some space. Make it a little longer because I've got 3 terms. I'll move my numbers down to the side. So I've got 3y and a positive 4. And then I've got 4y to the second plus 2y minus 5. And then I'm going to start to draw my little divider lines down. And start to multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. And again, now I'm going to look at how many y's I have. Well, I have 2 right here at the top, and I've got 1 y right here when I'm multiplying those together. So I've got 1, 2, 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. So y to the third. So that's a little different. And then I work my way across. 3 times 2 is 6. And again, now I have a 1, an exponent of 1 on that y. So I have 1 plus 1 is 2, so I have 2 y's. And then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15, and there's only 1 y between them. And then I start my second row. 4 times 4 is 16, y to the second. 2 times 4 is 8, y. And then 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. And now I could start looking for my like terms. So if I look, these two are like terms. They both have a y to the second. These two are like terms. They both have a plain old y, and then my numbers on the diagonal there the other way have no like terms. So our final answer is 12 y to the third. Again, I'm going to add in the middle here, and here are my green and yellow spaces. So 16 plus 6 is 22, y to the second. We're adding, so we keep it the same. And then 8 minus 15, or 8 plus a negative 15, is a negative 7, plain y, because I just keep the y's the same once I start adding. And then I break down my negative 20. Right? So this product goes with this part goes with this part. We have our numbers on the end, and that's my final answer, my final product. All right, time to give it a shot and help each other out as you work, but take it slow and use the box method for this assignment.